If you are a person of color, please interact with this because I have a question and I would really like any information and possibly an answer. Also, if I say anything in this video that's problematic, please call me on that because that's literally the last thing I'm trying to be. So I'm obviously a white woman and I also obviously have these little shorty hairs, and I'm going to be referring to them as shorty hairs because I still don't know if it's okay for me to refer to them as baby hairs. So for me, the shorty hairs are really difficult to maintain and style. I have naturally wavy hair. This is actually the straightest they've ever been. They also will not grow any longer than this. Believe me, I have tried. I've been trying to find different ways to style and maintain them, and I think it's really super pretty when people lay them down. However, I've been trying to do some research and I've seen in some places that would be considered cultural appropriation if I as a white woman were to do that, but then I've read in other places that it should be totally fine. I'm literally so conflicted. So please help me understand if that would be considered cultural appropriation, and also help me understand why, because obviously if it's cultural appropriation, I don't want to do that. Also maybe help me find some alternatives because all the alternatives that I've tried really have not worked well for me. So please be nice and help.
Alright, Q, so thank you so much for coming on. Guys, she was laughing because I messed up and I forgot to hit record, so we're starting over. So we're just gonna start with how I learned about you, right? My girl I'm not really on TikTok. My girl likes to send me TikToks that I think will be funny or that I might disagree with. She sent me the viral response to your viral TikTok. So I spoke, so I watched it, had a chat with my girl about it, whatever. It was, it was done. But then I decided I would like to talk to Ashley about her response, right? And I had her on about 2 days ago. And then Mike, my buddy, decided, or he suggested, he went, Carlos, why don't you ask like the original girl to come on? Why don't you ask, the great Chameleon to come on? And so I go, that's a great idea. And so here we are. We'll talk about the details. We'll talk about the social implications of it in a second. But first, I want to ask you, Q, what inspired you to make that TikTok? What were you hoping to get out of it? Did you get what you wanted to get out of it? Let's just start there.
Yeah, so first things first, just to kind of give people a perspective of where I was coming from, I come from a very whitewashed state. And when I mean whitewashed, I mean like we have very little racial or ethnic diversity here. And when we do have that, it's not very often like politely acknowledged or appreciated. So when I had seen like these baby hairs worn, I had generally see them worn on women of color, more particularly like Black women and women within like the Hispanic community. And so I was just curious, like, hey, I've never really seen a white woman do this. Is that okay for a white woman to do? And I just thought, I have like 16 followers on TikTok. Maybe one of them will have an answer.
Well, is that how many you started with?
I started with 16.
That's how many you had when you made the video?
Yes.
That's incredible.
Wow.
Good for you, Q.
Yeah, so I just thought, why not hop on there, ask, see if some people have some feedback for me. And the biggest reason I wanted to ask was because I know that there are some things that cultures hold really, really important to them and that are really significant to them. So I thought, how am I supposed to know the cultural significance of something? Or how am I supposed to know if something even is cultural significant if I've never been able to interact with individuals from that culture or that community? So I thought, it might be a silly question, but I really don't think it would hurt to ask and see other people's points of view. So I just kind of went for it and went home from work. I think the next day, hadn't really checked TikTok and checked it. And I was like, oh, this has like 20,000 views. That's pretty cool. We had like a couple thousand likes. And then every day it just like increased and increased. And I got more feedback and I was like kind of overwhelmed. But I think I did get, not necessarily permission, because I think that's a misconception. A lot of people think I was asking for permission, and the way that I worded it really did make it seem like I was. But I was really just asking for feedback and input, and I definitely got that in such a beautiful way.
I thought Ashley's response was great. I thought, when I saw her response, I was like, great. That's exactly classic response. Intelligible, not overly passionate. I thought her response was great. I'm sure you got a lot of other ones. You said you did, so that's great. So what state are you located in?
I'm in Utah.
Okay, Utah. I've heard about Utah.
Nice.
One of my our sound designer right now, he's from Utah? Where's Illinois?
That's not in Utah.
That's a different state,
That's a
right?
different state.
Okay, no, because I always mix him up because he's from one of them, but he studied at the other one. So I believe he's from Utah and studied at Illinois, or vice versa. And he says the same thing. He tells me that you did not see a brown person in sight. It was just...
Yeah. And if I can say, like, one of the difficult things with Utah, too, that drives me crazy is, like, we're trying to be somewhat progressive, but, like, we're still stuck in that whole phase where, like, we were like, oh, let's be colorblind. And I'm, like, kind of trying to push for, no, let's not be colorblind. Let's acknowledge that people have differences, but let's be, like, polite and, like, open to those differences and those, like, unique aspects of their life. But Utah is still in that, just like, no, colorblind only. That is the only box we will fit in. And I'm like, ah.
Okay, so that might be a good place to start because I love the word colorblind. Now, maybe the difference of perspective comes because where I'm from, it's actually super diverse. I spent a lot of time in, like, Orlando, Florida. And whenever I go back, I'm like, oh, I'm on the island again. Like... because I'm Puerto Rican and everyone in Orlando is like Puerto Rican now, and it's I'm just like, oh, okay, this is Orlando or is it Arecibo? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of wild. And yeah, you get a lot of white folks, you get a lot of black folks, you get a lot of Hispanic folks of all the categories, right? Mexican, you get everything. So why don't you like the word colorblind? Because for me, colorblind means it doesn't matter if someone is different. For me, colorblind means it doesn't matter if they look different. It doesn't matter if they act or not act, but it doesn't matter if they look different. And you still treat someone with, like, the basic level of, like, respect that you treat any other person, regardless of what they look like, right? And so I love the term colorblind. I think the more we aim at that, the closer we are to getting somewhere. But it sounds like you disagree. So tell me why.
So I kind of, like, I'm a therapy intern, so I'm going to talk in, like, therapeutic terms. We always talk about, like, seeing situations in all the different colors in the rainbow. And so I think that, like, acknowledging all of those different colors, not just on, like, the basis of race, but life experiences and things like that, I think those should be acknowledged and appreciated. So if you're going to look at the red stripe in the rainbow, like, that plays into so many beautiful things in life. Same with the yellow and the green. So I feel like if we tone down and we kind of put it into a grayscale, we kind of lose the significance of different cultures and different life experiences when we just say, oh, it's just a grayscale. So that's just kind of where I think differences are something that should be embraced and acknowledged and appreciated. But I can definitely see the benefit of what you're saying, kind of that colorblind scale.
Okay. So, I mean, it just sounds like a difference of definition in the term because, I mean, everything you just said I agree with. So I guess what might be a better question is, well, actually, my first question is, so what'd you decide to do with your baby hairs? It looks like they're laid down.
I don't know if you can see, they're not the best, but I have been laying them a little bit. The biggest thing I wanted to do is I have a widow's peak, a natural widow's peak, which is where my hair thins out up here. So I wanted to, like, be able to lay my hair and kind of mask that a little bit. So I keep it a little more subtle than the big, like, juicy curls. I think they're beautiful. They're just not quite for me. So yeah, I got my Eco Style gel. I got my boar hair brush. I got my toothbrush. And every morning it's, like, my favorite thing to do.
So it sounds like you decided, I'm going to do this thing. Were there any people who told you shouldn't do this? Like, were there any women of color who were like, you shouldn't do this, this is ours?
Definitely. I did take that to heart. I did consider that, and that's part of the reason I went for a more subtle look that kind of fit the frame of my face and my natural hairline, because a lot of women said, like, we'd more appreciate it if you didn't do the big curls and the patterns and the styles, but I think it's okay for you to do something more subtle, which is the look I was going for anyways. But I definitely did have from the different sides. I had input from both sides.
So if you woke up tomorrow and you were like, so like a lot of, I've seen a lot of women who do that, again, where I'm from is super diverse, and they do these wild, like, patterns. If you woke up tomorrow and you wanted to do that, you wouldn't do it? I
don't know. I just don't think that's quite for me. I think maybe I would. I might get on a live and say, hey, I'm trying out this style. But if people came on and were like, oh, I don't know that that's the best thing for you to be doing, maybe don't step into that territory, I would bow out gracefully. I have no problem with that. Like, people made such a big deal over me asking a question about my hair. They're like, is your hair really the biggest problem in your life? No, I just asked. So if people tell me maybe don't do something with my hair, I'm not going to get offended about that. I got bigger fish to fry.
Fair play. I think that's we pick the hills that we want to die on. So like, I mean, I feel that there's much bigger fish to fry than that. And that, for me, that kind of gets at the heart of this whole discussion. I kind of can't believe that all this is happening from like you asking a question about your baby hairs, right? But I mean, but you said something that I agree with vehemently, and that's you have bigger fish to fry.